Chapter 80, Occasional Play. Gong Yongsheng is resting in the inner hall. Why don't you guys go and take a look? Gu Hai said with an odd expression on his face. Li Shenji, Yi Divine Needle, and Long Shengwu, the three of them looked at Gu Hai as if they had been struck by a fixation spell. Rationally speaking, the three didn't believe what Gu Hai said at all. Just kidding, we've gone through a lot of effort, scheming and striking, and Li Shenji even got injured and almost lost his life. After all this, we didn't even see the shadow of Gong Yongsheng. You say you saved Gong Yongsheng out. Subjectively speaking, the three of them were even more distrustful of Gu Hai. The three of us from the Middle Heavenly Palace didn't save the person, and you, a Yuanying realm, can save him. The three just looked at Gu Hai. Gu Hai smiled faintly. Three of you, don't you want to come in and take a look? The three looked at Gu Hai blankly. Gu Hai was that certain. After Gu Hai finished speaking, he led Long Wenyu towards the inner hall. The three looked at each other, and although they had a look of disbelief, they still followed them in. Who are you? In the inner hall, a gust of air currents rolled up, and the three stood outside the inner hall, but their faces abruptly changed. This aura, in surprise, Yu Shenji stepped into the inner hall with Gu Hai's foot. Li Shenji and Long Shenwu also followed suit and crossed into the inner hall. Who are you? The inner hall's aura converged and was sucked into the white-clothed man sitting cross-legged in the center. The white-clothed man slowly opened his eyes and looked at the jaw-dropping expressions of Li Shenji, Yu Shenju, and Long Shengwu in front of him. Oh, third prince, Yunaki, and Camp Master Li, you guys are here too. The white-robed man let out a long breath, a hint of joy flashing in his eyes as he said, Divine Martial King, Yi Divine Needle, Li Shenji, cough cough cough. The three of them steeped their gazes towards Gu Hai in a bizarre manner. This was impossible, especially Li Shenji, who had just made a bold statement that not being able to save Gong Yongsheng was incompetence, and saving Gong Yongsheng was competence. Wouldn't he be incompetent in front of Gu Hai? Lord Gongyang wasn't even in Bat Valley earlier. Gu Hai, you lied to me. Cough cough cough. Li Shenji covered his wounds and asked dryly. The Divine Martial King and Yi Divine Needle's colors moved, right. If they weren't in Bat Valley anymore, then that would be right. While everyone looked at Gu Hai, Gong Yongsheng was recalling. I was the one who was imprisoned in the Bat Valley, and it was Gu Hai who saved me from it. Li Shenji, it was so hard to find an excuse to cover his face, but in the blink of an eye, he was ruthlessly trampled on by Gong Yongsheng. Gu Hai really saved me from Bat Valley. Camp Master Li, next time when you curse, leave a little bit of virtue in your mouth. Or else, instead of cursing others, you'll curse yourself in the face. Gu Hai said without any politeness at all. Li Shenji's face instantly rose in a burst of redness. I think that I, Li Shenji, I am skilled in strength and strategy, but today, I was taught a lesson by a villain like you. Don't need you to teach me a lesson. Humph. Li Shenji let out a cold snort in depression. Of course, you're the one my brother-in-law got out. Otherwise you'd still be floating a corpse in a pool of blood. Long Wenyu instantly said smugly. At this moment, Long Wenyu didn't want any credit. Giving it to her brother-in-law made her happier than giving it to herself. As for Ziwei and Chongsheng, Gu Hai's promised to let them eat freely. They were eating non-stop in the back kitchen at this moment. Oh, this one is. Gong Yongsheng's eyelids jumped a little as he looked towards Long Wenyu. Obviously haven't seen Long Wenyu, but Long Wenyu's words are too hard to hear. What do you mean, I'm still floating a corpse in a pool of blood? This is County Princess Wenyu, Princess Ziyu's daughter. Yi Divine Needle immediately explained. Oh, Princess Ziyu's daughter. Gong Yongsheng raised an eyebrow. He's the heart of the saint. Whatever she says, don't take it to heart. Yi Divine Needle immediately added. After all, at the time when Gong Yongsheng was imprisoned, Long when you is not yet born. What old man's heart's flesh? Unique. Don't talk nonsense, dead old man. Never give me out to play, and still heart meet. Long when you said with a disdainful face. Bold, Gong Yong Sheng's eyes glared. Dead old man. This is insulting His Holiness. What are you looking at? Long Wen Yu's eyes also glared. At this point, Gong Yong Sheng suddenly realized Long Wen Yu's position in the sage's heart. Dead old man. There was also a unique on the side. The third prince, Li Shenji, and the others were actually not surprised at all by Long Wen Yu's name. The county princess is also called, so bluntly in front of His Holiness, I said. Don't take it to heart. You divine needle laughed bitterly. Gong Yong Sheng's eyelids jumped again, before his eyes Long Wen Yu's position in his heart, steeply elevated countless, became mysterious, for what he did not understand. It is better to suppress the anger in his heart first. You are Gu Hai. Gong Yong Sheng suddenly looked to the side at Gu Hai. Hall Master of the One Piece Hall. Gu Hai, meet Mr. Gong Yong. Gu Hai smiled slightly. Did you compose chivalry, and will enter the wine? Gong Yong Sheng, but suddenly his eyes lit up and said, precisely under me, but, to some people, it's just waste poems, claptrap. Gu Hai glanced at Li Shenji. This was how Li Shenji mocked Gu Hai just now. Which bastard said this bastard thing? What waste of poetry? Chivalry, and will be wine. This is still a waste of poetry. Then what else is good poetry? Claptrap. That's the jealousy of others who can't afford it. Gu Hai. It's well written. Gong Yong Sheng suddenly laughed with a glare in his eyes. The people on the side all looked at Li Shenji with strange colors. Li Shenji's face once again rose in a burst of redness. As long as Lord Gongyang likes it. It's nothing. Gu Hai smiled faintly. Who is your teacher? Gong Yong Sheng got up and said with a solemn expression. Gu Hai revealed a hint of doubt. It's the one who taught you the way of calligraphy. To be able to write such a good poem. There must be a famous teacher whose name is spread all over the world. I wonder if I can recognize it. Who is your teacher? Gong Yong Sheng said curiously. The crowd looked at Gu Hai together. Gu Hai said with an odd expression on his face. I don't have a teacher. No teacher. Then how did you write chivalry and general wine? Gong Yong Sheng looked disbelieving. I figured it out blindly. The way of the book, I only heard of such a thing as the way of the book some time ago. Gu Hai laughed bitterly. Gong Yang Sheng stared at Gu Hai with a disbelieving face. On the side, Yi Divine Needle, however, spoke up. Hall Master Gu did just come into contact with the book Tao 3 years ago, and was still in a mortal body, not knowing how to cultivate. Figured it out blindly. Gong Yong Sheng, but his eyes lit up in shock. Gu Hai smiled slightly bitterly, nodded his head. One could only say this, otherwise there would be no end to it. Just coming into contact with the book Tao, you can write such a chapter, unusually talented. It shows that above the book Tao, you have an understanding that surpasses ordinary people. Some people even, as they work hard for their whole life, they will not be able to reach your height. Such a good talent, can't it be buried like this? How about being my student? I will definitely pour out all of my resources to pass on the way of the book to you. Gong Yang Sheng solemnly said. Take Gu Hai as a disciple. Yi Divine Needle, Divine Martial King, and Li Shenji immediately changed their faces. Lord Gongyang, but he promised a long time ago not to accept any more students. To actually make an exception for a Hall Master Gu. Yi Divine Needle was surprised. Sima Feng, who was standing at the door, was even more jealous with glowing eyes. Li Shenji, however, raised an eyebrow. Not only was Gu Hai valued by Gong Yong Sheng, but more importantly, Gong Yong Sheng, as the sacrifice priest of the State Scholarship Academy, had energy in the Great Jian. There were an unknown number of his disciples. If Gu Hai were to be his student, then Gu Hai's resources would immediately increase by countless It was a lot of trouble for himself to deal with him in the future. Gu Hai was however slightly stunned. How? Gong Yongsheng confidently looked at Gu Hai. The state scholarship priest, similar to Gu Hai in the erstwhile Earth-speaking university president. ++ Sinkil president ++ minister of education, telling you to accept you as a student. Such a prestigious honor. Book Dao cultivators could rarely refuse. Gu Hai, however, smiled bitterly and said, "Thanks to Mr. Gong Yong's love, writing poetry, just for occasional fun. I don't want to walk the book path." Occasional fun. You don't want to cultivate the way of the book. You're so talented, and you don't cultivate the way of the book. Gong Yongsheng's eyes glared. My brother-in-law is even more powerful in the Qin Dao. How could he have the time to learn the book Dao from you? Longwen Yu, however, said with a disdainful face. Originally rescuing Gong Yongsheng, Longwen Yu still felt pity for this person, being locked up for so long. But he opened his mouth and wanted to accept brother-in-law as a student. Where is brother-in-law worse than you? The way of the Qin. Gong Yongsheng was slightly stunned. Hallmaster Gu's Zither Dao is indeed formidable. Not long ago in Yingzhou, the Zither Dao defeated Liu Yong and broke an army. A few tombs, invincible, and was even recognized by the Silver Moon Viya's owner, suppressing countless Zither Dao masters and obtaining a heavenly grade Zither. Ye Divine Needle explained with a bitter smile. Impossible. The Zither Dao also requires great enlightenment, but it's the opposite of the book Dao. How can they both be powerful? And didn't you say that he just stepped into the cultivation world? Could it be that the Qin Dao was also just touched? Gong Yongsheng had a disbelieving face. I've only heard about it in the past few years, Gu Hai nodded. Powering over countless Zither Dao masters and obtaining a heavenly grade Zither. The old lord of Silver Moon Villa, he really gave it up. Your Zither Dao is actually still so powerful. You're going to take the Qin Dao for your literary cultivation. But it's a pity that your book Dao is also so powerful, Gong Yongsheng sighed. Speaking of the Zither Dao, I only play with it occasionally, Gu Hai laughed bitterly. Playing occasionally again. Gong Yongsheng steeply twisted his head to look at Gu Hai. Zither Dao is also something you play with occasionally. Playing around. Gu Hai. Many people don't have much talent in their entire lives, while you have too, and you don't know how to cherish it. Gong Yongsheng had a look of regret. On the side, Ye Divine Needle was responsible for checking the world's news and knew more about Gu Hai. At this moment, he also couldn't help but say, Lord Gongyong, you don't need to bother about Hallmaster Gu. Hallmaster Gu's best is still the chess Dao. In the innate remnant realm, Hallmaster Gu's single chess piece was able to suppress 100,000 chess Dao experts and even thwarted the 9 dukes of the Yishan Pavilion. Gong Yongsheng, chess Dao. This was the rhythm of wiping out the Wen cultivators in one fell swoop. Gong Yongsheng looked at Yi Shunjin with a disbelieving face. But who was Yi Divine Needle, the commanding envoy of the Night God's guards? How could he possibly talk blindly? Powerfully defeating the 9 dukes of the Yishan Pavilion. While others didn't know what the concept was, Gong Yongsheng instantly understood Gu Hai's chess power. Where did this demon come out from? So, thanks for the love, Mr. Gongyang. Gu Hai shook his head and said. He knew his own situation best. He was just the most powerful in the Tao of chess. The Tao of book and the Tao of Zither were all special reasons. Learning from Gong Yongsheng, then everything would be revealed. Gong Yongsheng was so torn inside. It was even more torn than being imprisoned in the blood pool. Where did this freak come out from? Boom. Right at this moment, in the Bat Valley to the west of the city, there was a huge sound that shook the heavens, and the 4 directions of the Bat Valley exploded into the earth, with bloodlight rushing into the sky.